Hi guys, in this video we're going to finally get some of these guys on some bases.
Scruffy Crow.
So my order from War Bases finally came today, and it is full of bases. Plus a couple of other things. I've got some round bases there for something I've got planned in the next couple of weeks, so keep an eye out for that. I got some chickens because I just fancied seeing what they look like. I might use them in my townscape. And I got this skip because I'm doing some sort of modern terrain. I'm looking at a zombie game. I think this could be quite an interesting little addition. And once again, I just thought I'd pick it up because it looked cool. Just out of interest, really. So yeah, so what I was really waiting for was these bases. So as far as I understand it, the generals and what have you go on 40mm square bases. The regular troops go on these 40x20s, and cavalry go on the 40x30s. I printed out one of these pre-done Pacto lists, and I did a bit of Googling. So apparently flexible basically means that I have maybe 3 on one base and 4 on the other, and then I choose whether or not they become flexible or sort of ordered or whatever the options are. I've still not played this game, I've got no idea really, so I'm hoping I've got this right. So I'm going to start by sorting out my warriors into the groups of 7. Okay, so after a little bit of interneting and counting and sorting these, I'm still pretty confused about how these are meant to go together. But I'm looking at this army list, and I think I've got a plan. I don't know what skirmisher means, but I'm assuming that's going to be 2 of those per base, because it says on the back of the box that I get 4 slinger and 4 javelin, and I have to make 2 bases of each for this. So the naked guys and the guys with trousers and even some guys wearing shirts, I'm going to mix them all together. I thought the naked guys were going to be separate, but I think together anyone with a spear is going to be a warrior. So that's going to be 10 bases of these guys. And then that leaves the guys armed with swords and shields, including the awesome little command sprue. And they're going to be my nobles and soldiery. I'll work out a way of making the nobles look slightly different. I'll probably use the best armoured ones. So I just need 6 bases for those guys. Which is handy, because that is all the bases I bought. Okay, so what I've done here is I have sorted all of the guys into the poses they're in. So it's actually quite interesting. We've got sort of anywhere between, how many we've got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of this guy, but seemingly only 1 of this guy. Just 2 of this one. All over the place. So I'm going to get to work getting these guys glued down. I've also used this, snip this guy off the command thing. He's going to sort of lead this lot. So I've cleaned the bottoms of the base as best I could. I started with the file, but it's not the best material to file, but it does work. I've just been using my knife, and I've done them by poses like this. So what I do is when I'm building the bases, I can pick from each pile. I can get a cool little unit without getting doubles on each base. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to get them all glued down like that in a mixture of 4s and 3s. Okay, so there's 5 pairs of bases. Half of them have 4 guys on, half of them have 3 guys on. They're definitely very highly glued down because I wanted to move this one, and that's pulled up the MDF base rather than separating the glue, and they've only just been put on there. So these guys aren't going anywhere. I was also finding it really tough to get these guys bases flat, and especially balanced when you've got like running ones like this fella. I don't think I could have done it without my quite high viscosity super glue here. I've been kind of like daubing that on a little bit. more than I'd normally use, just so they've got that kind of suction to keep them in place while the glue dries. My next step is going to be to go around with my knife and clean up all these mould lines. Actually, I changed my mind and carried on with the sorting. So what I've gone with is I've decided my Soldiari, they're Fnatic Devastating Charge guys. I've picked the guys with the swords and shields, but with no shirts on. So there's a few sculpts like that, and they can be led by this guy who forgot his trousers. And they look suitably fanatical to me, I think. And then that leaves me with more than enough guys with swords and shields and shirts to be my nobles. And I think they fit in quite well for that, because they've all got sort of helmets and the sort of best gear. So I think of those, and like, yeah, I think they'll work as nobles. And actually I think I'm going to do something a little bit special for No Trousers guy. He's going to be on a base with two other guys. But I'm going to take one of these spare bases that I've got plenty of. So cut it quite roughly. I'm going to bevel up the edges. And then I'm going to take my little beveled part. I'm going to glue that in the middle of the base. And then I'm going to give this guy pride of place. Drop his very own hero rock. Before adding these little shirtless buddies here. Okay, so I've had a good old session with my scalpel, and I think I've removed most of the mod lines from all my infantry, and I got carried away and even did my cavalry as well. Saying that, I do keep spotting the occasional one, such as this one. So I'll show you how I was doing it. It's because of this sort of rubbery material, you can't really scrape them off, though it does kind of work. So like his helmet here, you can do a sort of scraping method and it removes them, but less practical in somewhere like this. But I found kind of a rolling my knife around kind of works and cleans them up rather well. So yeah, basically I'm just sort of locating a mould line and then just sort of running my knife along it and just taking this sort of hair thin section of the line away. Trying not to damage any of the model. So I'll keep an eye out for some more, but I think I've got the vast majority. There'll always be one or two I've missed. So the next stage is going to be to try and smooth out the difference between our little integral bases here and the boards they're on. So I'm going to be doing that with some of this Wilco brown wood filler. I like the brown because if it chips or anything, it's still brown underneath. And I sort of quite like the way it finishes over the sort of cheaper white stuff. I also like the premix just because it's a little bit easier. So this is my go-to one now after trying a few. Do is I mix it with a little bit of water in one of my trusty Pringles lids, so it sort of holds its own but is fairly goopy. And I'll show you on this one because there's plenty of room. I just sort of daub it on and I get close to the bases, try not to go on them too much. And I'm just raising up the level of the wood to match the level of the base. I'm not trying to get this too smooth because after all, these guys aren't playing crown green bowls, they're on a battlefield, and there'll all be all sorts of grass and tufts and weeds and stuff on here as well when we're done. There was also a couple of places where I placed guys up on sort of hero rocks. Basically they're going to get the same treatment but doubly so. So I'm going to smooth him into his rock, and then I'm also going to smooth the rock into the rest of the base. Try and make it look all nice and neat and natural, like try and make it all look nice and neat and natural, like it's all one piece. So we can leave little bits like that because that's kind of what the world looks like to a certain extent. Now because I have mixed a bit of water in with this, there will be a certain amount of shrinkage and that'll sort of tighten up and you might be able to see the outlines of the bases a little bit more again. But after we finish you won't really notice, and this will take most of the difference away. And the more water you add, the easier it is to apply. But obviously the more shrinkage you'll get. I mean, you don't have to add any water at all and you get it like this. As you can see, this is a lot harder to work with. You have to kind of more smear it on. Possibly the cocktail stick's not the best for doing this. So at that sort of consistency we're going to get little to no shrinkage. But to do the whole army like that, it'd be an absolute nightmare. So I found this just a little drop of water just makes it that little bit more useful. Okay, so that is filler on all the bases. And as you can see, some of the ones I started off with have already started to dry. You can kind of see the lighter colour it goes. And this is what I was on about. There's going to be a little bit of a lift, a bit of shrinkage. But anywhere it's really bad, I'm just sort of smearing an extra layer on. So it's not really going to be noticeable. Anyway, I'm just finicky about these things sometimes. And anywhere that it's flowed over the edge like this, I've actually found it's easier to sort that out once it's dry. Less messy that way. I'm going to leave these overnight to dry completely through before we do the next step. Okay, so the wood filler is now dry on all these bases, completely solid. Anywhere where it's come over onto the front like this, I'm just going to get the file and I'm just going to quickly wipe that off. It doesn't take any time at all. Just neatens up those edges. So I've got them all tidied up, and now I'm going to take some of this Builder's PVA. Get in my trusty Pringles lid. And we're just going to give these guys a layer of sand. The normal way I'd give pretty much any other miniature. So we're just going to get get some PVA on here. Something a bit like that. Got a handy takeaway tub here, I'm going to pop him in there. Now I've talked about sand before on this channel, and what I really like is this stuff. This is sort of kind of quite a coarse bird sand, and I actually had quite a bit of trouble tracking some of this down until I bought a big 25 kilo bag of the stuff. But I think that's going to be a little bit coarse for these guys for the look I want. The stuff I tend to be able to find in pet shops is this stuff, which is what I've been using on my Epic models, and honestly I think that's probably a bit too fine for this. So the obvious compromise is this mix here. So this is about 50-50, and this is what I use on my bolt action actually. And I think this is probably going to be the appropriate stuff to use on this. Here's the difference between the two different grades of sand, painted exactly the same set of paints, exactly the same way. So that's the coarse stuff, and that's the finer stuff. This is a base that I did with a mixture of the two, but with more of a layering sort of technique. But that's the sort of effect, that's the sort of level of coarseness I'm looking for. So I'm going to get these guys all PVA'd up, get them in my little takeaway tub here, and just give them a little sprinkle across the top. Probably leave them under the sand for, I don't know, 5-10 minutes. We need it in there long enough for the sand to sink into the glue and really bond together. Otherwise, if you take them out too early, the glue sort of starts to appear back through the top and you get a sort of glossier effect than you probably want. And I do apologise if this is sucking eggs to anyone. I do tend to go through even all these basics in all my videos. I don't know if it's worthwhile or not. Mostly I'm just nattering to myself while I do my hobby. And there we have it, that's sand on all my bases. So I'm going to give these guys another once over, make sure there's no sand anywhere it shouldn't be, and have a final check for mould lines. But otherwise, these guys are ready for paint, and that means it's the end of this video. And that's all for this video. Please let me know what you thought down in the comments, maybe subscribe for more, and as ever, thanks for watching, bye!